He'd traveled thousands of miles, clinging to the hope of seeing his son graduate, a dream deferred by years of sacrifice and service. But as he approached the Grand Hall, his worn uniform a testament to a life lived far from the spotlight, the university guards stepped forward, their faces grim, their voices firm. They told him he couldn't enter, that his name wasn't on the list, effectively asking a father to depart on his own son's momentous day. The world seemed to tilt on its axis, a lifetime of quiet resilience threatening to shatter, until 6 figures in crisp, dark uniforms emerged from the crowd, their presence commanding an unspoken reverence that silenced the bustling campus. The California sun, usually a benevolent golden blanket, felt like a cruel spotlight on David's weathered face. He stood on the periphery of the sprawling university campus, a lone figure amidst a sea of excited families, each one radiating a joy that felt both foreign and acutely painful. His dress uniform, meticulously pressed despite the long journey, felt heavy, a burden of memories and unspoken regrets. For 20 years, the military had been his life, a calling that had taken him to distant lands, through scorching deserts and frozen tundras, always with a single, burning image in his mind: his son, Michael, walking across a stage, a diploma in his hand. That day was today. He'd counted the hours, the minutes, the seconds, the culmination of 2 decades of deployments, missed birthdays and fragmented video calls. Every hardship, every lonely night, every scar had been endured for this singular moment, this tangible proof that his sacrifices had paved a path for Michael's future. David had arrived early, too early perhaps, the anxious energy buzzing beneath his skin. He watched parents embrace their children, their faces alight with pride, and a pang of longing, sharp and unwelcome, pierced his chest. He saw a father playfully tousle his son's hair, a mother adjusting her daughter's cap, and each simple gesture, so commonplace, felt like a scene from a life he'd never fully lived. He'd always been the distant parent, the one who sent postcards from faraway lands, the voice on the crackling satellite phone. He'd missed Michael's first steps, his first lost tooth, his first school play. The guilt was a constant companion, a quiet hum beneath the surface of his stoic exterior. But today, he believed, would be different. Today, he would be present. He would see Michael, embrace him, tell him how proud he was, how every single hardship had been worth it for this. As the lines for entry began to form, David took a deep breath, his heart thrumming with a mixture of anticipation and trepidation. He adjusted the brim of his cap, a small, nervous habit. He was a man who had faced down armed insurgents, navigated treacherous terrains, and endured the unspeakable, yet the simple act of walking through those gates felt like the most daunting mission of his life. He saw the security guards, their uniforms crisp and authoritative, checking names against a list. He had ensured Michael had put his name down, though he hadn't wanted to make a fuss. He just wanted to be a quiet observer, a proud father in the background. His turn came, and he approached the guard, offering a polite nod. "David Miller," he said, his voice a little hoarse from the dust of travel and the lump in his throat. The guard, a burly man with a stern expression, scanned his list, then looked up, his gaze sweeping over David's uniform with a flicker of something unreadable. "I'm sorry, sir," the guard began, his voice flat, devoid of emotion. "Your name isn't here." The words hung in the air, heavy and unyielding, each syllable a hammer blow to David's carefully constructed hope. He felt the blood drain from his face, a cold dread seeping into his bones. "There must be a mistake," David managed, his voice barely a whisper. "My son, Michael Miller, he's graduating today." He put my name down. The guard, however, remained unmoved. "We have strict protocols, sir. If your name isn't on the list, we cannot allow you entry." He gestured vaguely towards the bustling crowd, a silent command for David to depart. The world around David seemed to blur, the vibrant colors of the campus fading into a dull, monochrome wash. He felt a profound disorientation, as if the ground beneath his feet had suddenly shifted. This wasn't just about missing a ceremony. This was about a father being denied the culmination of his life's work, a son's proudest moment being witnessed by everyone but the one who had sacrificed so much. The injustice of it, the raw, searing unfairness, began to rise in his chest, a tidal wave of emotion threatening to overwhelm his carefully maintained composure. He stood there, rooted to the spot, a veteran of countless battles, now utterly helpless in the face of a simple university security protocol. He saw other families, laughing, cheering, their joy a stark contrast to the desolate emptiness that was rapidly consuming him. The guard's gaze hardened, a silent warning. David felt a desperate urge to explain, to plead, to somehow convey the depth of his journey, the weight of his love, but the words caught in his throat, strangled by a wave of raw anguish. It was in that moment, as the first prickle of tears threatened to betray his resolve, that a hush began to fall over the normally boisterous crowd. A shift in the atmosphere, subtle yet undeniable, drew David's attention. He looked up, his gaze following the collective turn of heads, and what he saw sent a jolt through him, a strange mixture of confusion and a nascent, unfamiliar hope. The crowd parted almost instinctively, a ripple of quiet, awe spreading through the assembled families. 6 figures, tall and imposing, moved with a synchronized precision that spoke of intense training and a shared purpose. Their uniforms, distinct and authoritative, were not the casual attire of university faculty or the standard dark suits of security. These were the uniforms of the United States Navy SEALs. Each man exuded an aura of calm competence, their gazes steady and focused. They didn't stride aggressively, but rather moved with an understated power, their very presence commanding respect without a single word being uttered. David, his heart still a bruised knot in his chest, felt a flicker of recognition, a deep, almost instinctual understanding. He knew that bearing, that quiet strength. He'd seen it in the mirror, in the faces of his brothers in arms, in the unwavering resolve of those who served. As they drew closer, David realized they were heading directly for the security checkpoint where he stood. The burly guard, who moments earlier had been so unyielding, now seemed to shrink slightly under their collective gaze. A younger SEAL, his face set in a look of controlled intensity, stepped forward. He didn't raise his voice, yet his words carried an undeniable weight, cutting through the murmuring crowd. "Sergeant Miller," he began, his voice clear and resonant, "we've been looking for you." David, still reeling from the sudden turn of events, could only nod, a profound confusion clouding his mind. The SEAL turned to the university guard, his eyes unwavering. "This is Sergeant David Miller. He is here to witness his son, Michael Miller, graduate with honors." There was no aggression in his tone, no threat, simply a statement of fact delivered with the quiet authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. The university guard, flustered and clearly intimidated, stammered, "But, sir, his name isn't on the list. We have protocols." The SEAL's gaze remained fixed, a silent challenge. "Sergeant Miller has served this country for 2 decades. Protocols, in this instance, yield to respect." His voice was low, but the message was clear. It wasn't a request, it was a directive. The other SEALs positioned themselves subtly, their presence a silent reinforcement of their comrades' words. The sheer unexpectedness of it, the sudden shift in power dynamics, left the security guard speechless. David watched, a lump forming in his throat. He understood, then, that this wasn't a coincidence. This was a deliberate act, a gesture of profound solidarity. The young SEAL, whose name David would later learn was Commander Jenkins, turned back to David, a subtle, almost imperceptible nod of respect in his eyes. "Sergeant Miller, it would be an honor if you would allow us to escort you to your son's graduation." The words were a balm to David's wounded spirit, a stark contrast to the dismissive tone he'd received moments before. He felt a surge of emotion, a mixture of gratitude and an overwhelming sense of being seen, truly seen, for the first time in what felt like an eternity. He straightened his shoulders, a lifetime of military discipline kicking back in, and returned the nod. "It would be my honor, Commander." As they began to move, a path opening up before them through the now silent crowd, David heard whispers. "Is that a SEAL team? Why are they here?" But mostly, there was a sense of hushed reverence, a recognition of the significance of the moment. The 6 SEALs formed a quiet escort, not like bodyguards, but like an honor guard, their presence a silent tribute to a man who had dedicated his life to service. David walked between them, his worn uniform now feeling less like a burden and more like a badge of honor. He saw a few scattered claps begin, tentative at first, then growing louder, a ripple of applause spreading through the onlookers. Faces that had seemed indifferent now offered smiles of respect, some even saluting. The injustice, the humiliation he had felt just moments ago, began to recede, replaced by a profound sense of pride and belonging. He was not just a father trying to see his son. He was a soldier, a veteran, and he was being acknowledged, honored, in a way he had never anticipated. As they approached the main entrance of the Grand Hall, the massive doors swung open as if on cue, revealing the bustling interior, a sea of caps and gowns, and the vibrant hum of anticipation. David took a deep breath, the scent of fresh flowers and possibility filling his lungs. He was here. He was finally here, and he would see his son graduate. The cavernous hall buzzed with an almost palpable energy, a symphony of anticipation and triumph. Rows of graduates, a sea of identical caps and gowns, shimmered under the grand chandeliers. David, still escorted by the silent, formidable presence of the SEALs, felt a peculiar mix of overwhelming emotion and newfound composure. The earlier humiliation had evaporated, replaced by a quiet dignity. The path cleared before them, people instinctively stepping aside, their whispers now carrying notes of curiosity and respect rather than dismissiveness. He kept his gaze steady, scanning the rows, searching for Michael. He found him quickly, a familiar shock of dark hair, a subtle tilt of the head. Michael, usually so reserved, was beaming, chatting animatedly with the student beside him. David felt a wave of profound relief, a warmth spreading through his chest that chased away the lingering chill of the morning's rejection. This was it. The moment he had dreamed of, fought for, lived for, was finally here. The SEALs, as if sensing his focus, subtly guided him to a section near the front, where a few seats remained open, seemingly reserved. They stood for a moment, a silent wall of unwavering support, before Commander Jenkins, with another respectful nod, indicated the seats. "These are for you, Sergeant Miller." He didn't ask. He presented it as a matter of course, as if this was precisely where David belonged. David took a seat, the plush velvet feeling luxurious after his long journey. The SEALs, instead of dispersing, took up positions at the back and sides of the seating area, their presence a quiet assurance, a protective perimeter. It was an unspoken statement. David Miller was not just a spectator. He was a guest of honor, and they were ensuring his right to be there. The gravity of their gesture settled over him, bringing a fresh wave of emotion. These men, strangers, had stepped in, not out of obligation, but out of a shared understanding of duty and respect. It was a profound act of kindness, a testament to the unspoken bonds forged in service. As the ceremony began, a dignified procession of faculty and dignitaries, David's gaze remained fixed on Michael. He saw his son's excitement, the subtle shifts in his posture, the proud lift of his chin. Memories flickered through David's mind. Michael as a small boy, waving goodbye through a blurry video call screen. Michael's hesitant voice over a crackling satellite phone, asking about a distant land David couldn't describe. Michael's handwritten letters, filled with drawings and innocent questions about his father's adventures. He hadn't been able to tuck Michael into bed each night, hadn't been there for every scraped knee or school play. The ache of those missed moments was a constant companion. But watching Michael now, a strong, intelligent young man poised to embark on his own journey, David knew that the sacrifices, the long separations, had not been in vain. When Michael's name was called, a clear, resonant voice echoing through the vast hall, David felt his heart leap into his throat. He watched as Michael strode across the stage, a confident stride that spoke of purpose and determination. The applause was deafening, a roar of collective pride. Michael shook hands with the university president, received his diploma, and for a fleeting moment, his eyes scanned the audience. Their gazes met. Across the vast expanse of the hall, amidst thousands of faces, Michael's eyes found his father's. A wide, uninhibited smile broke across Michael's face, a smile of pure joy and recognition. It was a silent acknowledgement, a shared moment of triumph that transcended words. In that instant, all the years of separation, all the unspoken longing, all the hardships simply dissolved. There was only this moment, this undeniable connection, a father witnessing his son's hard-earned success. David felt tears prick his eyes, hot and insistent. But this time, they were tears of profound gratitude and overwhelming pride. He didn't wipe them away. They were a testament to a journey, to a bond that time and distance could never truly diminish. As the ceremony concluded, a cacophony of joyful shouts and the rustling of gowns filled the hall. Graduates hugged, families reunited, and the air thrummed with celebration. David rose from his seat, a sense of lightness in his step he hadn't felt in years. He began to make his way towards the aisle, his gaze still fixed on Michael, who was now being embraced by a flurry of friends. Just then, Michael looked up, his eyes sweeping the crowd one last time, and their gazes locked again. This time, Michael started to move, pushing through the throng of his peers, his eyes alight with a mixture of surprise and profound happiness. "Dad!" Michael's voice, a little choked with emotion, cut through the general hum of the hall. He reached David, throwing his arms around him in a tight, unreserved embrace. It was a hug that conveyed years of unspoken words, of missed moments, of a love that had persevered through distance and hardship. David held his son tightly, inhaling the familiar scent of him, feeling the solidness of his presence. He clapped Michael on the back, a rough, affectionate gesture. "Michael," he managed, his own voice thick with emotion, "I'm so proud of you, son." Michael pulled back, his eyes shining. I didn't think you'd make it. They said you might be on deployment." His voice held a hint of the boy he once was, vulnerable and hopeful. David smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile that reached his eyes. "I wouldn't have missed this for anything." He then glanced over Michael's shoulder, a silent acknowledgement of the 6 seals still positioned at the back of the hall. Michael followed his gaze, his brow furrowing in confusion. "Who are they, Dad?" They were with you when you came in." David looked at his son, then back at the SEALs, a quiet understanding passing between them. Commander Jenkins offered a subtle, almost imperceptible nod. "They're friends," David said, a warmth spreading through him. "They helped me get in." Michael, intelligent and perceptive, seemed to grasp the unspoken truth. He looked at the SEALs, a dawning realization in his eyes, and then back at his father, a newfound admiration etched on his face. He understood, without needing to be told, that this was more than just an escort. It was a testament to his father's enduring legacy of service and the deep respect it commanded. As they moved towards the exit, the SEALs maintaining a respectful distance, people continued to offer smiles and nods to David, some even stopping to shake his hand, thanking him for his service. It was a stark contrast to the initial rejection, a powerful affirmation of dignity and worth. Michael, walking beside his father, seemed to stand a little taller, his arm linked through David's. He saw the respect in the eyes of strangers, the quiet admiration, and it resonated deeply within him. This was his father, not just the distant figure in uniform, but a man honored and respected by those who understood true sacrifice. Later, as they stood outside in the golden California light, surrounded by the joyous chaos of post-graduation celebrations, Michael turned to David. "Dad," he began, his voice soft, "I know you've missed a lot, but today you were here, and that means everything." David looked at his son, his heart swelling with a love so profound it brought tears to his eyes again. "It means everything to me too, son. Everything." The sun, no longer a cruel spotlight, now felt like a warm, benevolent embrace, illuminating a bond that had been forged in the crucible of sacrifice and redeemed by the unwavering power of love and a profound act of unexpected kindness. The future, once uncertain and shadowed by absence, now stretched before them, bright with the promise of shared moments and a deeper understanding. In the days that followed, the echoes of the graduation ceremony lingered, not as a fading memory, but as a vibrant new beginning. David stayed on, extending his leave, something he hadn't thought possible. He and Michael spent hours together, reconnecting, filling in the gaps of 2 decades. They walked the sprawling campus, Michael pointing out his favorite spots, his voice animated with a newfound ease. David listened, truly listened, absorbing every detail, every anecdote. He learned about Michael's late-night study sessions fueled by bad coffee, his triumphs in difficult classes, the friendships forged over shared dreams. And Michael, in turn, began to ask more about David's life, about the places he'd seen, the challenges he'd faced, not with the hesitant curiosity of a child, but with the mature understanding of a young man who now saw his father as a complex, remarkable individual. One afternoon, as they sat on a bench overlooking a sun-drenched quad, Michael confessed something that had weighed on him. "Dad," he started, his gaze fixed on a distant point, "I always wondered if you regretted it, being away so much, missing everything." David reached out, placing a hand on Michael's shoulder. "Never," he said, his voice firm, unequivocal. "There were hard times, son, lonely times. But every single day, I knew I was fighting for a better future, for a safer world for you. And seeing you today, seeing the man you've become, it makes every sacrifice worth it 1,000 times over." The honesty in his voice, the raw, unvarnished truth, resonated deeply with Michael. It wasn't a platitude. It was a father's heartfelt confession, a profound declaration of love and purpose. The encounter with the SEALs, too, had a lasting impact. David learned that Commander Jenkins had been a former student of Michael's professor, and upon hearing a passing mention of Michael's father, a decorated but often deployed soldier, Jenkins had taken it upon himself to ensure David's presence. It was a gesture born of shared military brotherhood, a silent recognition of a debt owed to those who serve. It wasn't about special treatment. It was about ensuring that a father who had given so much was not denied a moment that should be his by right. This revelation deepened Michael's understanding of his father's world, of the unseen bonds that connected men and women in uniform, a world of unwavering loyalty and profound respect. As the days turned into a week, David felt a sense of peace settling over him, a quiet contentment he hadn't known was possible. He saw not just the accomplished graduate, but the young man who still cherished his father's presence. He saw Michael's kindness, his integrity, the very qualities David had hoped to instill in him, even from afar. The long-distance parenting, the video calls across time zones, the letters filled with hopeful words, it had all culminated in this. A reunion, not just of 2 individuals, but of 2 lives finally aligning, finding their rhythm together. The university, once a place of potential heartbreak, had become the backdrop for a profound healing, a quiet transformation. The future no longer felt like a lonely road for David, nor a path Michael had to walk alone. It felt like a shared journey, finally. As David prepared to leave, the ache of separation was still present, a familiar pang, but it was now tempered by a profound sense of peace. The past few days had woven a new tapestry of memories, rich and vibrant, replacing the faded photographs of his son's childhood. He had seen Michael, not just as a graduate, but as a compassionate, intelligent young man, forging his own path, yet still deeply connected to his roots. And Michael, in turn, had seen his father not just as a soldier, but as a man of unwavering love, whose sacrifices had built the very foundation of his life. The morning of David's departure, Michael drove him to the airport. The usual hurried goodbyes of their past were replaced by a quiet, comfortable silence, punctuated by shared smiles. At the departure gate, they stood for a moment, the weight of their reunion and the promise of future ones hanging in the air. Michael reached into his bag and pulled out a small, wrapped package. "Something for the flight, Dad," he said, a shy smile playing on his lips. David unwrapped it slowly. Inside was a framed photograph. Michael, in his graduation cap and gown, standing proudly beside David, who was in his dress uniform, a broad, genuine smile on his face. Behind them, faintly visible, were the 6 seals, a silent testament to the extraordinary kindness that had brought them together. David's eyes welled up again, but this time there was no sadness, only a deep, abiding joy. "Thank you, son," he choked out, his voice thick with emotion. Michael squeezed his shoulder. "No, Dad. Thank you." In that simple exchange, everything was said. The years of absence, the sacrifices, the unspoken anxieties, they all faded into the background, eclipsed by the power of their rediscovered bond. As David walked towards his gate, he clutched the photograph, a tangible reminder of a day that had started with crushing disappointment, but had ended in profound triumph. The sting of the guard's rejection had been washed away by the unexpected arrival of the SEALs, a powerful symbol of brotherhood and respect. That moment, when strangers had stepped in to right an injustice, had not only ensured David's presence at his son's graduation, but had also opened the door to a new chapter in their relationship. He was no longer just a distant figure in uniform. He was a father, fully present, fully seen, and deeply loved. The journey home would be long, but for the first time in a long time, David knew he wasn't just returning to a life of duty. He was returning to a life connected, whole, and filled with the quiet, powerful hope of what was yet to come. The uniform might still be his calling, but now he carried with him the irreplaceable warmth of a son's embrace and the indelible memory of a dream fulfilled.